By the time Larry left the hotel, the city had thinned into silence. Streetlights stretched long and pale across the asphalt, like watchful eyes that never blinked. His car moved through them steadily, mechanically, as if his body were driving on instinct while his mind stayed behind in the penthouse. Power is corrupt, his father used to say, but absolute power in the hands of a woman is a nuclear weapon. Larry hadn't believed it then. It had sounded bitter, old-fashioned, fear disguised as wisdom. Now, with Helena's voice echoing in his head, the words felt prophetic. How dare she, he muttered, gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. How dare she use Julia, her own daughter, as a silent pressure point? She hadn't threatened him. That was the worst part. She hadn't needed to. Back in his apartment, sleep refused him. The bed felt unfamiliar, too wide, too quiet. He lay on his back, staring at the ceiling as Helena's voice replayed itself with merciless clarity. You think this was about desire? It wasn't. I didn't choose you by accident. You were the only one who wouldn't say no. Her tone had been calm, observational, as if she were explaining the weather. I chose you because you're disciplined. Men like you always are. Larry turned onto his side, jaw tightening. I needed someone who understood silence, someone who knows when not to ask. Then the moment that cut deepest, you're engaged. The word had slipped into the room like a blade laid gently on a table. No flourish, no force, just presence. Julia speaks very highly of you. Helena hadn't watched for his reaction. She hadn't needed to. She understood timing, pressure, how to introduce the truth and let it do the work on its own. Larry exhaled sharply and sat up. Helena Sidney Washington didn't raise her voice. She didn't posture. She didn't rush. She controlled people the way architects controlled space, by understanding structure, weight, and collapse. That was why Julia had never truly liked her mother. Not openly, not dramatically, but with the quiet resistance of someone who had grown up being subtly rearranged. And now Larry understood why. Helena hadn't just assessed him, she had categorized him. Safe, useful, necessary, a tool. Not for pleasure, but for balance. For her marriage. For her husband's infidelity. For a war she intended to fight without ever appearing on the battlefield. Larry stood and crossed the room, the city lights blinking through the window like distant signals. His reflection stared back at him, controlled, composed, unchanged on the surface. But something inside him had shifted. If I have to do this, he said quietly to the empty room, I'll do it my way. He paused. If I'm going down, I'm not going down alone. Helena Sidney Washington will go down first. This wasn't rage anymore. It was clarity. Helena had planted leverage, confident she would decide when, or if, it would ever be used. Larry decided something else. He would detonate the seed before it had time to grow roots. By morning, anger had cooled into focus. Larry showered, dressed, moved through his routine with precision. Discipline wasn't just something Helena had noticed. It was something he owned. And discipline, when redirected, could become strategy. He picked up his phone and made a call he hadn't planned on making until the decision crystallized. Gabriella, he said when she answered. It's me. A pause, then a familiar sigh. I need to see you, he added. Today. Later in his apartment, Gabriella sat across from him, one leg crossed over the other, coffee untouched in her hands. She listened as Larry laid out what he knew and what he suspected. Gabriella didn't ask why. That was the first thing Larry noticed. She sat on the far end of the couch, one leg folded beneath her, the other angled toward the window. Morning light slipped in through the blinds, cutting the room into soft stripes. Her coat was still on. Her bag rested at her feet. She hadn't settled in. That told him everything. "You look like someone who didn't sleep," she said finally. Larry leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. "I didn't." She nodded once as if confirming a theory. "Last time you called me like this," she said, "you were about to do something you'd already decided on." He didn't deny it. "Tell me," Gabriella said. So he did. Not dramatically, not defensively. He told her about the call and the penthouse and Helena's husband, Alonzo Sidney Washington, a man with a reputation for charm and wandering attention. A man who liked discretion almost as much as he liked women. Gabriella didn't interrupt. She never had. That was why Larry trusted her. "So," she said finally, her eyes narrowing slightly, "you're saying Helena thinks she's the only one who knows where the cracks are?" Larry nodded. "And you want to change that?" "I want to even the field," Larry replied, "before she decides to move it." Gabriella leaned back, considering him now with new interest. "If anyone is going down," Larry said calmly, "it won't be me first." Outside, the city carried on, unaware, indifferent. But somewhere between Helena's penthouse and Larry's quiet apartment, the balance of power had shifted. The game had begun. The woman who wasn't supposed to be that woman. The calm way Helena had explained his usefulness like a business case. When he mentioned Julia, Gabriella's jaw tightened. Just a fraction. "She didn't threaten you," Gabriella said when he finished. "No, that's worse." Larry exhaled slowly. "She framed me." Gabriella looked at him then. Really looked. "As safe," Larry continued, "as disciplined, as someone who wouldn't break." "And that offended you?" "No," he said. "It frightened me." That landed. Gabriella stood and walked to the window, peering down at the street far below. Cars moved like pieces on a board. Predictable. Replaceable. "She thinks she owns the silence," Gabriella said. "Yes. And you're thinking about breaking it. I'm thinking about relocating it." Gabriella turned. "That's not the same thing," she said carefully. "Breaking silence is chaos. Relocating it is control." Larry held her gaze. "Exactly." She studied him for a long moment. "You didn't call me because you need help," Gabriella said. "You called me because you need cover." Larry didn't answer. She smiled faintly. Still honest, just selectively. She walked back to the couch and sat, this time leaning forward, elbows on her knees. "Tell me about her husband," Gabriella said. Larry didn't hesitate. "Alonzo Sidney Washington, public charm, private appetite, patterns, discretion, women who don't ask for permanence." Gabriella's eyebrow lifted slightly. "You've done your homework fast." "I had to." "No," she corrected gently. "You wanted to." A beat. "She's using him as her weakness," Gabriella said, "and you want to use him as your counterweight." "Yes." "And if this explodes?" she asked. Larry's jaw tightened. "It won't explode." She shook her head. "Everything explodes eventually. The question is where." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just deliberate. "You still love Julia," Gabriella said quietly. "Yes." "And you're willing to put her mother in the line of fire." Larry closed his eyes for a second. "I'm willing to stop her mother from deciding when my life becomes collateral damage." Gabriella leaned back. "There it is," she said. "That's the truth." She stood again, pacing slowly now. Helena believes she understands men because she understands leverage, Gabriella said. What she may not understand is women who are no longer invested in winning. She stopped in front of him. You're not asking me to seduce her husband, Gabriella said. No. You're asking me to observe him. Yes. To verify patterns. To confirm access. Yes. And to be invisible while doing it. Larry nodded. Gabriella considered this. If I do this, she said, we don't confront Helena. Not yet. I know. We don't warn Julia. I know. And we don't rush. I know. She searched his face. When did you become this calm about something this dangerous? Larry met her eyes. The moment I realized she already was. Gabriella exhaled. All right, she said. Then we do this clean. She picked up her bag. No seduction, no traps, just information. She paused at the door. And Larry? Yes? If Helena finds out you're moving pieces, Gabriella said, she won't punish you. Larry frowned. She'll test you, Gabriella continued, and tests are where people die quietly. The door closed behind her. Larry stood alone in the apartment, the weight of the next move settling into place. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that two people had just agreed to shift its balance by a fraction. But fractions were how collapses began. Gabriella arrived 10 minutes early, not because she needed the time, but because arriving early let her see who arrived late. The gym occupied the upper floors of a glass and steel building that overlooked the city like it was something to be assessed rather than admired. Everything inside smelled faintly of eucalyptus, metal, and money. No loud music, no mirrors shouting for attention. This wasn't a gym for transformation. It was a gym for maintenance. The receptionist smiled with professional warmth. First time with us? Yes, Gabriella said easily. I've just joined. Her voice was calm, unremarkable, the kind people forgot 5 minutes later. She signed in, accepted the towel, the access ban, the brief orientation she didn't need. As she walked in, she let her gaze drift, never linger. She clocked the exits first, then the cameras, then the trainer stations, and then Helena Sidney Washington. Helena wasn't hard to spot. She never would be. She stood near the free weights, posture immaculate, movements economical. No wasted energy, no performative exertion. She wore black, tailored leggings, sleeveless top, understated, expensive, intentional. Her trainer stood close, too close. He didn't hover like the others did with their clients. He didn't bark instructions. He leaned in occasionally, spoke quietly, adjusted form with brief, familiar touches. Gabriella noted the details without reacting. Comfort, she thought, not flirtation, important distinction. She chose a treadmill with a clear line of sight but no obvious angle. Started at a moderate pace. Let her breathing stay even, unremarkable. Around her, the gym moved with a subdued rhythm. Soft footfalls, controlled exhales, murmured conversations. People here didn't grunt. They didn't sweat publicly. Even exertion was discreet. Helena moved to the mat area. Her trainer followed. Gabriella slowed her pace just enough to stretch, casual, plausible, and watched in fragments. Reflections in glass, peripheral glances, timing. Helena laughed at something the trainer said. It wasn't loud, it wasn't indulgent, but it wasn't necessary either. There it is, Gabriella thought. She finished her set and moved to the weights, deliberately choosing a station adjacent but offset, close enough to share space, far enough not to intrude. The trainer glanced at her briefly, just long enough to register. Gabriella smiled politely, the kind of smile that suggested friendliness without invitation. She lifted a dumbbell, tested the weight, adjusted. "First week?" the trainer asked, neutral. "Yes," she replied, "still finding my rhythm." "Good place for that," he said. And just like that, his attention returned to Helena. Gabriella noticed Helena's eyes flicker toward her. Not curiosity, assessment. Helena didn't smile, she didn't frown. She simply registered Gabriella's presence the way one registered a new piece of furniture. Gabriella felt the weight of it, brief but unmistakable. "She sees everything," Larry had said. Gabriella believed him. She completed her workout without incident. No lingering, no attempts at connection. When she left, Helena was still there, mid-conversation, posture unchanged. Outside, the city noise rushed back in, louder, messier, honest. Gabriella paused on the pavement and exhaled. Nothing had happened, which meant everything had begun. Before we continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Turn on your notification if you can. If you are excited for the next part, hit like and share. Tell us where you are watching from. By the third week, Gabriella stopped counting days. She counted repetitions. Helena Sidney Washington arrived at precisely 6:40 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. Not early enough to be seen as obsessive, not late enough to disrupt routine. She wore black or charcoal, always sleeveless, hair tied back with deliberate simplicity. Her trainer arrived 5 minutes before her. Always. Gabriella noticed this because on the one morning he didn't. Helena didn't show. It was a small absence. Easy to miss, the kind that disappeared into the rhythm of a busy gym. But Gabriella saw it immediately. She finished her set, wiped down the bench, and waited. 10 minutes passed. Helena never arrived. Coincidence, Gabriella thought, or dependency. The following Thursday confirmed it. The trainer was late again. 12 minutes this time. Helena didn't come. Gabriella's pulse stayed steady. Patterns weren't conclusions. They were invitations. She didn't change her routine right away. She waited another week, watched the choreography repeat itself with quiet precision. Trainer present, Helena present. Trainer absent, Helena absent. No exceptions. By week 3, it wasn't speculation anymore. It was structure. The first reaction came without drama. Gabriella was mid-stretch when she felt it. That subtle shift in the air, like a door closing somewhere unseen. She looked up. Helena was watching her, not openly, not directly, through the mirror. Their eyes met for half a second. Helena's expression didn't change. She finished adjusting her gloves, said something to the trainer, and turned away. But Gabriella felt it clearly. "You've been noticed," she didn't respond. That was the test. Engineering proximity required patience. Gabriella altered nothing visible at first. She didn't linger, didn't follow, didn't initiate conversation. She became predictable. Same days, same time window, same zones. She let familiarity do the work. On the 5th week, she timed her arrival to coincide with the trainer's availability, not Helena's. She waited until he finished a set with another client, then stepped into his line of sight naturally. "Excuse me," she said lightly. "Do you mind checking my form? I think I'm compensating on my left side." He hesitated, professionally, then nodded. "Sure." The adjustment was brief, clinical, harmless. Helena noticed immediately. She didn't interrupt. She didn't object. But she shifted her stance, changed the order of her routine. It was subtle, but Gabriella saw it. Possession, Gabriella thought, not jealousy. The next week, Gabriella asked the trainer a question Helena already knew the answer to. The week after that, she laughed softly at something he said. Nothing flirtatious, nothing explicit, just enough. Helena's reactions grew quieter, not sharper. A pause before starting a set, a longer drink from her bottle, a look that lingered half a second too long, and then the first mistake. One Tuesday morning, the trainer was reassigned without notice. Helena arrived anyway. She stood in the middle of the gym, still scanning. For the first time since Gabriella had known her, Helena looked unanchored. She left after 12 minutes. Gabriella watched her go. That afternoon, she texted Larry one word, confirmed. Before we continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Turn on your notification if you can. If you are excited for the next part, hit like and share. Tell us where you are watching from. If you enjoy gripping drama and stories that keep you guessing, please like, share, and subscribe to support our YouTube channel and help us keep these stories coming your way. Watch out for our recent uploads. Title: Power, Money, Revenge. It's a one-shot masterpiece. This dark, gritty, and psychological suspense action thriller will keep you on the edge of your seat. Helena left the gym without urgency. No phone in hand, no hurried steps. The posture of a woman with nothing to hide or nothing to fear. Gabriella gave her 3 minutes. She tied her laces slowly, wiped down the bench, let the noise of the gym swallow the moment. When she finally stepped outside, the air had cooled, the late afternoon sun already beginning to flatten into gold. Helena's car was easy to spot, black, immaculate, discreet in the way only expensive things could be. Gabriella didn't follow immediately. She waited until Helena merged onto the main road, then pulled out, 2 cars behind. Enough distance to disappear into traffic, close enough not to lose intent. The city thinned quickly. Glass gave way to brick, brick to trees. The buildings lowered, the streets widened, and the noise softened into something almost domestic. This wasn't where Helena was supposed to be. The neighborhood was quiet, suburban, manicured lawns, identical mailboxes, children's bicycles left unattended, the kind of place that promised privacy without asking questions. Helena parked 3 houses from the corner. Gabriella rolled past once, then again, slower this time. She watched Helena step out, adjust her coat, walk with purpose toward a modest townhouse halfway down the block. No hesitation, no glance over her shoulder. Gabriella parked 2 streets away and walked the rest. From across the road, half hidden by a tree, she watched as Helena knocked. The door opened almost immediately. The trainer. No gym clothes, no uniform, just jeans and a soft gray sweater, like a man who expected company. Helena stepped inside. The door closed. Gabriella stood very still. This wasn't flirtation. This was routine. She raised her phone only once, long enough to capture the address, the door, the car, the timing. No photos yet, not tonight. She walked away before the street could notice her. Larry waited until after midnight. Hillary's street was darker than Helena's. Fewer lights, less polish. A place where privacy was less guarded and more assumed. He parked at the far end and walked the rest. The house was tidy, neutral, curtains drawn but not tight, a porch light left on like a question no one expected answered. Larry didn't knock. He slid the envelope cleanly through the letterbox and stepped back into the shadows. Inside was no letter, no explanation, just photographs. Helena entering the townhouse, the trainer's door, a timestamp, and one line typed and folded once. Not everyone lies as well as they think. Larry didn't wait to see the reaction. He didn't need to. By morning, the outer circle would crack, just enough to let air in. And once air entered a sealed system, Pressure followed. He drove away slowly, not relieved, not triumphant, just aware. The war hadn't begun with confrontation. It had begun with knowledge.